How's it going, everyone? It's Johnny Beard here, and welcome to Tierlist Thursdays. We're going to be doing a tier list every single week on a Thursday. What a surprise, right? And today we're starting off with a tier list on Silent Hill characters. Now, we're going to be talking about characters from Silent Hills 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I want to make this quite clear that we're going to be talking about just these 4 games. We're not going to be talking about the remake. We're not going to be talking about any other characters in any other games. And in fact, when we're judging these characters on tier lists today, we're going to be trying to base them on these 4 games, so there might be some characters that might be in other games. I'm going to try not to take that into account when we're talking about these characters today. And also, what I'd like to make clear that I'm going to be trying to base them on them as characters, how they have been written. Not necessarily saying that all the good guys are good characters and all the bad guys are bad characters. So if I say, oh, this villain is amazing, it doesn't mean that their actions are great, obviously. So I just want to make that quite clear. The idea is we're going to drop a character into C tier, we're going to discuss the character, and then we're going to place them and rank them accordingly. We're going to start off with Silent Hill 1, obviously, and we're going to start off with the man, the myth, the legend, Harry Mason. So Harry Mason is a fantastic character, let's be honest, especially when it comes to the context, I think, of the series as well. I don't know. I just love this guy. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I think that he might be a bit too bland or a bit too basic, but I don't know. I would, when you compare him to like other characters, I feel like in other similar kind of setups, a lot of people compare him to like Ethan for Resident Evil 7. I personally think, considering this guy came like 25 years before Ethan Winters and Mario 7, I feel like he's well rounded as a character. He's very compassionate, obviously, a great dad, really caring. He cares a lot about Sybil, who we'll be getting to shortly. He just wants to find his daughter. He's got some iconic lines. And of course, I say we're not supposed to be talking about characters in other games, but even though he's technically in Silent Hill 3, but you got so much love for him based on when we get to Heather's character in Silent Hill 3 and how much love and adulation she has for her dad / not dad. Then again, you just love him even more. And again, we shouldn't. I feel like I'm contradicting myself already by saying we shouldn't be talking about them in any other games. But there's such a direct link between Silent Hill 1 and 3, and of course, we are talking about both those games today as well. So I'm gonna. Is he the strongest character in the series? Is he the most well written character in the series? Is he? I don't think I can quite put him as an S tier character, but I do feel like we can certainly make a really strong case for A here. He's just a really cool, well-rounded, nice guy, great dad, and of course, he saves the day in Silent Hill 1, and then raises another daughter, on his own as a full-time dad as well. So just genuinely legendary character, great guy. So yeah, I don't think there's much more to really say about him, really. Then we got Sybil Bennett, the side character for Silent Hill 1's Harry. I like Sybil. I've always had a soft spot for her. I mean, I'm sure the leather trousers have something to do with that, but no, she's a really cool gal. She's a really cool gal. She's obviously a very capable police officer again, and is sucked into the world of Silent Hill, and it's sad to see her, unfortunately, kind of put into a situation where, again, she doesn't really deserve it. Like, again, there's not a lot of like background detail about why Sybil's there, what she has done, and because again, you tend to get the impression that people tend to be in Silent Hill for a reason. I think that maybe it's because she's the first, side character in the first game. There's probably not a lot of explanation for that. So I suppose in that respect, she's not as well written as some of the other characters that have come. But she's a really good sidearm. She's a really good side character. Supports Harry, helps him get through the conflictions and confusion of what is happening around Harry. of course, she trusts him with a gun, which is more we can say for the Copenhagen 7, right? A freaking pocket knife? No. Yeah. I'm torn between B and C here. I'm gonna put her under B tier. I might change it to C later on, but I think B tier feels right for now. She's a cool side character. Unfortunately, her place in the series ends. We never know what happens to Sybil, like ever, really, to be honest with you. And again, I think her character in the movie is really good as well. Again, I know we're not necessarily taking that into account here, but I think she was well cast in the movie as well. Then we have got Lisa Garland. Lisa is a iconic character in Silent Hill. And when I think about we talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake, again, we're not taking into account, we can discuss it a little bit, how much Silent Hill 2 had a remake, and it makes me want a Silent Hill 1 remake even more because of the tragedy of Lisa's story. I think really could be explored in more detail, and in fact it is in Silent Hill Origins, which again, not taken into account in this ranking today, but if you do want to know more about Lisa's character, definitely check out Silent Hill Origins. Yeah, Lisa, very conflicted, very, very well written character, I must say as well. Especially again considering it's the first game in the series. She's not letting you on really with why she has such difficulty, doing what she doing her job as a nurse, and why she's conflicted with talking to Harry and the part she plays in the overall plot of the game. She's a broken, torn character that has done shit and is paying the consequences of it. But equally, she shows remorse and she shows regret and she shows mercy. She's a great character. She really is. And I love the fact that she's pretty much one of the few people that you don't really see her like interact with anyone but Harry. I think you kind of see her at one point with Michael, don't you? I just think she's a well written character. I'm putting her under A tier. Again, her demise, her death scene, should we say, is iconic, and it could very, very much do with a lick of remake power to it, because it has aged not great, but it's still traumatic and still very, very heartbreaking. It's a very heartbreaking end. Great character, love Lisa, and definitely one of the best characters in the game, for sure. Michael Kaufman, not so good a character, I don't think. I think he's arguably the weakest character in Silent Hill 1. Doesn't have a lot of plot going on. I know, again, his plot is explored more in Silent Hill Origins and his relationship with Lisa, but we're not taking that into account necessarily today. His side character stuff, in terms of like if you explore it, because again the steps in terms to get more out of Michael Kaufman's character in the story, it's not very clear, but once you figure it out and you do it, it's still okay. Again, his part in the plot of Silent Hill 1 is explored to a small amount, but not great. Again, with all the drugs and stuff like that that's going on. I don't know. I just don't really feel much for the guy at all. I don't think he's the best well-written character. I don't think his character's explored even beyond into Silent Hill Origins much. He's kind of coming across as like this mysterious character who, not letting on more than what he knows, but doesn't really go much beyond that. And he's not a nice guy, but he's not like evil or anything like that. He's kind of a nasty piece of work, I suppose. Basically, that's probably the best way to describe him. I'm kind of thinking of putting him into D tier. I might move him to C, maybe, not sure. I'll see how I get on. The final Silent Hill 1 characters is arguably the main antagonist. We've got Dahlia Gillespie. We haven't got Alessa. We haven't got Cheryl in this list. I mean, let's just quickly talk about those two characters because we can't not talk about them. They're not on this list, I think, for a very good reason. I didn't make this tier list, by the way. You can find it on the Tiermaker quite easily. Yeah, the reason why I don't think the person that made this list put them in is because there's not a lot of personality and plot, really. Well, there's more plot, but there's not a lot of personality, and there's not a lot of... They don't really do a lot of actions, they don't really do a lot of anything, really, in that respect. Of course, they have importance to the plot. Very strong, significant importance, in fact, but you can't really talk about their personalities in a lot of great detail. So it's kind of hard to kind of really rank them. They are, you know... yeah, important, but yeah, hard to kind of place them anywhere here. Dahlia, on the other hand, of course, we certainly can. She is the main antagonist. She is a terrible mother, a terrible cult leader, but a fantastic antagonist, a great antagonist. I mean, you know, she kind of plays like the cliche evil, witchy, old woman type of, you know, character, but to great effect. Speaking in riddles. You know, in fact, it's quite weird. I've mentioned it a couple of times today, but it's kind of funny talking about Ari's village. Massively feels inspired by feels massively inspired by Silent Hill 1 here. You know, because it's got some similarities, I'd say, between Ethan, who's in RE7, of course, as well, and Harry, and then you got the similar relationship between Dahlia and Harry, and as you got Ethan with the old hag, should we say. In our village, although that does go down a different route, slightly. It's quite funny seeing the similarities there, which I've not really thought about until today. But anyway, so Dahlia is great. She's a great character. She's not. I don't think she's like the best villain, but equally she's pretty strong. She's caused so much shit to happen, you know, with her daughter, with the town, with the fires and the drugs and the cults and everything. I'm leaning being A here with Dahlia. I think I'm gonna put her for A for now, and then again when we get to Silent Hill 2, we'll see how we get on with that. So yeah, let's start with Silent Hill 2, shall we? Actually, so we start with James. James from Silent Hill 2. Again, this is not Silent Hill 2 Remake. I've not played a remake yet. I hope to play that hopefully in the coming weeks. But we're not taking into account remake characters here. So no comments, no spoilers, please, as well. OG Silent Hill 2. James. I mean, I don't think there's much else to really say. Well, there's lots I can say, but I'm going to immediately put him in the S tier. I think he is arguably one of the best characters ever written in a Silent Hill game, and in history, to be honest with you. Again, the depths, the twists, the threads, the plot, the actions, the way everything is interwoven into his personality, into his everything. He is such a well-written character, such a traumatic, such a just horrific set of circumstances that again he has been involved with and in and done to and doing with, if that makes sense. There's just everything. Silent Hill 2 and James is incredible, absolutely incredible. You know, you can't. He is Silent Hill 2. You know, the game it's him. You know what you go through, and when you thread into, you know, what happens to the town, what happens to the other characters around him, like how they all bounce off him. Everything is around. It's him. He is Silent Hill 2. Like the whole plot and story is his. So people who talk about loving Silent Hill 2. Why they love Silent Hill 2, unless you just go down to a cliche, I love it because it's Pyramid Head shit, which again is him. You know, so everything about Silent Hill 2 is him. So, like, for me, if you think Silent Hill 2 is an amazing game, you can't, for me, dispute that James is an insanely well-written character, S tier. Simple as that, you know? Yeah, everything and anything. And it's so hard to talk about specific details, you know? Because you're just talking about the plot of the game then, aren't you? So, you know, like, even when it comes to, like, again, talking about the OG game, you know, when you see that pretty much all the dead bodies in the game are basically him. You know, again, depending on how you interact with, you know, with Mary and Maria, it's him, you know. What ending you get, again, the different traumatic endings to get with him, you know. And as I said, we talked about Pyramid Head being him as well. So just, yeah. Just that's it. And then we've got Maria. Here we have Maria, the side character from Silent Hill 2. He says squeaky. Is that what we're going to call her? I think that's what we're going to go with. So obviously not taking into account Mary. Here we're talking about Maria. So Maria, again, in terms of why she is who she is in the game, you know, the opposite basically of Mary in terms of being young, fit, healthy, sexy, promiscuous, again, just she's just again a great character in terms of what she provides to the plot and to the story of Silent Hill 2. You know, her relationship with James and the actions that you can take in terms of, you know, interacting with her, how sick she can become, the interactions with her and Pyramid Head as well, in that chase sequence, the absolutely iconic cutscene in the almost a jail cell, isn't it? Is just tremendous. Again, I've seen the trailer for Silent Hill 2 Remake, and they've done that to a T. I've not played the actual game, as I said, but I've seen the trailer, so again, that's seemingly done very, very well. Just again, the way she plays and toys with James is just so nice. It's so subtle, because that's the thing. It's not over the top. It's not in your face as such. She's just like some, like, you know, dangling with some strings, you know, like a puppet, playing with it, and it's so well done. It's excellent. And again, of course, she might become the main villain. She might become the person you leave town with, depending on what you do. Just incredible, absolutely incredible. I'm going to put her in the A tier. I don't think I can quite put her to S tier. I think she's a tremendous character, to be honest with you. Definitely a fan. We got Laura. Again, I've not seen how Laura's been portrayed in the remake yet, so I can't really comment on that. But in the base game, she's okay. She's got some iconic lines. Fart face. Again, she's one of the more interesting characters in terms of, like, how much of her is part of James is an interesting debate, because she seems like one of the few source characters that isn't necessarily directly him. So she's kind of like one of the few that's definitely kind of has a presence outside of him. Like, she is almost like, you know, she's the one that talks about the letter, she talks about him lying, she talks about the fact that, you know, he didn't treat Mary well. She was definitely a real person, and she was definitely involved somehow with Mary, and how much of that is his imagination and how much of that is reality, it's hard and disputed to take that apart. But she's okay. She's an annoying little brat, you know, and plays that character quite well. But I don't think she's like amazing either. Again, I've not seen how she's portrayed in the remake. I think it could be improved. You know, there's certain similarities I suppose you can compare her with like Sherry from RE2 in that respect. I think she's probably less annoying than Sherry, but you know, she is still kind of an annoying little brat character, but does that job for a reason. And again, there's a certain human nature. There's you know, her character's written well enough to, again, like, you know, when James calls her a liar, she basically says she locks him in that room for that first proper boss fight and stuff like that. So, you know, she's she's definitely got, she's well written. You know, I'm kind of between B and C, but I'm going to go with BT here. Again, I feel like she is well written, you know, to be fair to her. And then we got Eddie, one of the more interesting characters from Silent Hill 2 in terms of, again, in terms of his impact on James as a character. Like, there's only kind of one major point. Again, I can't comment on the remake, but in terms of the OG game, there's only one major kind of point of Silent Hill 2 in terms of the reason why he's definitely there for James, should we say, specifically the relationship between James and the characters, which is basically when James does kill Eddie, he's kind of like, oh man, I killed someone, you know, type of thing. And of course, Eddie is killing people left, right and centre, you know, and he's kind of like, there's the penny drop moment of I've killed someone type of thing. Of course, you know, James has blocked that from his memory, and obviously, you know, he basically killed his wife, so, you know, that unlocks that really important door into James's memory recovery of the events that happened leading up to the beginning of the game. So, you know, that importance is significant, don't get me wrong, but when you take that out, any of interactions, like the whole laziness, eating pizza, the bowling alley scenes with Laura, again, it's interesting to see an interaction between Laura and Eddie, because again, that there's not many interactions between characters in the game, and that's one of the few significant events that happens, is that Laura and Eddie and James are in the same space, you know. So again, it kind of confirms that Eddie is real. You know, he was picked on and he was bullied, and then he killed people. I think he killed animals. Didn't he kill a dog? I can't remember. And stuff like that, you know. So, you know, I don't think he is as well written, really, as some of the other characters. To be honest, I feel like his significance is waning, really. You know, and his story is less impactful to the character we're going to talk about in a minute, which is Angela. So I'm going to keep him there. I'm going to keep him as a C tier character. I don't think that he is a greatly written character, and his purpose in the plot is actually quite thin compared to some of the other characters around him. But then we have got Angela, who again is just such a tremendously written character. And again, when we talk about characters that are to do with James and as characters on their own, I suppose in terms of a story, Angela's story is just so sad. You know, again, you know, her purpose with James comes to the potential suicidal implications, and you know, and self-pity, self-harm, and the relationship one has with oneself in terms, you know, of trauma and dealing with trauma. And again, you know, Angela, oh bless her, God, you just feel so sorry for her. She's such a traumatically anxiety-riddled individual, and had so much crap happen to her, you know, again with her dad, and, you know, abuse and stuff like that. And again, she's so young, and just, God, it's just sad. This is a really, arguably the most tragic story in the game, would you believe, is Angela's. Again, I've not seen how she's been dealt with in the remake. I've seen a lot of the stupid postings on social media about how she's not sexy and all this stupidity, but, you know, those basement dwelling trolls can rot as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, so in terms of the character, she's fantastic. Again, such a significant character in terms of, again, maybe going down certain endings, certain roads. Again, if she gives the knife to James, and then James, if he, depending on how much he inspects that knife, has different endings and stuff like that. So, and again, her walking into the fire, and again, saying it's hot in hell, it's hot as hell in here, and it's always like this for me, and it's just beautiful storytelling, and just trauma in the definition, basically. Andrew's character is just trauma defined. It's drama. I'm gonna put it under A tier. I feel like I put too many characters in the A tier here. I kind of feel like I need to move someone down. I'm not really sure who. I don't know. I might move Lisa down. Let's move Lisa to B tier. Yeah, great character, Angela's character. And then we got Mary, whose character, despite all the stuff that happens in the game, her character isn't the strongest written character. A lot of the events, obviously, of the game is kind of similar to, weirdly enough, kind of similar to Silent Hill 1 in terms of, like, you got Cheryl and Alessa. The equivalent of that character in Silent Hill 2 is Mary. In terms of, she doesn't have a lot of plot. She doesn't have a lot of personality and character-driven narrative as such. But her impact on the story is profound. It's so important. You can't have the game without those three characters in Silent Hill 1 and 2. So it's hard to kind of rank her, because as I said, I kind of feel like she shouldn't necessarily be here. Or if she is here, so should maybe Cheryl and Alessa from Silent Hill 1. So I'm gonna probably put her in the C tier there as well for that reason, because she's basically, if I'm not mistaken, a cancer-ridden, loving wife to James, who is innocent in the events of her life. Is a middle of the road innocent woman who is probably from what I can tell, a good wife to James, and again, they went to they went to the hotel together, and they went to all these places in Silent Hill and stuff like that, and then she gets cancer, and all that stuff, and it's sad and very tragic, obviously, what happens to her, and then she gets killed, which is just really, really just tragic and sad. But in terms of her personality, it's kind of hard to kind of say much more than that. She hasn't really got a lot more going for her in that respect. But yeah, yeah, I think that's probably it, really. So let's go to Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 characters now. So let's talk about Heather Mason. Heather, the main character of Silent Hill 3. Kind of feeling like, again, I might need to put it straight to S tier. I don't think there's much else to really say in terms of, like, debating where to put her. I think she is an S tier character. Again, it's kind of similar to Silent Hill 2 in terms of the game being around James. Silent Hill 3, main protagonist being around Heather. What a surprise, I know. But equally, in terms of it's not just about that, it's about what they do with that. Can I just say, if you guys want a fantastic, in-depth story driven YouTube video to watch around Silent Hill 3 and Heather as a character, can I just highly recommend my friend Tango Mushi's video on Silent Hill 3. I will link a description video to that, by the way, because she drills down how fantastic a character Heather is, and her importance into female adolescence and being a young woman. Very, very well, way better than I could do. So definitely want to recommend that video for you guys. But yeah, I'll do my best to summarize a lot of the key points that Tango makes in her video. But purely that, again, there's so many young women and girls that look at Heather's character and goes, damn, that is a well written female character. We talk a lot about female characters in video games not being well written, usually written by men or written with a masculine type of approach where to how men perceive women, shall we say. But Heather's character breaks that mold in a lot of good ways, you know, and you know the way she interacts with the environment in Silent Hill 3 is just incredible. Like, she has opinions on bread, she has opinions on clothes, she has opinions on dead bodies. She has, again, how she interacts with her environment. You feel her personality just coming through so much by just interacting with the environment of Silent Hill 3. Again, how she reacts to characters in the game, because some of the characters are like really pompous and you know, belittle her because she's a young woman or a teenager, and these are adults. And again, in terms of like adults speaking to young people, a lot of older boomer adults don't know how to speak to people, and that comes through very well. The way she talks back to them with her little, you know, bit of attitude, her like teenage angst almost, again, feels realistic. It feels well written. But again, how she deals with what happens in the events of Silent Hill 3, again, you know, like her first interaction with the first monsters, like what the fuck, you know, type of things. The way she deals with Douglas at the beginning, it's like, dude, are you okay? Like, leave me alone, type of thing. Again, just incredible character. The way she deals with the difficult events that happens to her as well. You know, again, you know, the whole story around Silent Hill 3 about, you know, about a young woman and fertility and abortion, and you know, being part of, you know, a family legacy as well. That comes into it in terms of like, you know, you are bound to this tradition of family values, and she's like, no, screw that, I'm going to do things my way, type of thing. You know, it's just an amazingly well written character for a fantastic Silent Hill game. And speaking of, I'm playing that on Mondays at the moment, if you're interested, over on Twitch and YouTube, so come check me out. But yeah, back to this. Silent Hill 3's character, main protagonist of Heather Mason, is just fantastic. Then we got Douglas. If you've seen the UFO thing, you'll know what I'm talking about. Douglas is okay. Douglas is, I think that's probably one of my main differences, I think, and we're going to probably see that come through now, is I don't think the characters for Silent Hill 3 are as good as Silent Hill 2, but there is still some good stuff going on here that we definitely need to explore. And Douglas's character, you know, again, depending on what ending you get, is an interesting character as well. But again, he is there as a genuine, almost like father figure, almost, which is kind of controversial to say considering Harry. But you know, in terms of the plot and in terms of you know, the surrounding story, he does kind of act like that father-esque figure, or maybe should we say uncle figure. Maybe that might be a bit more, less, or shall we say less controversial. I don't want to say that he is being a dad. He's not being a dad. But he is there as an older, level-headed support to Heather. Of course, she rejects him straight away at the beginning of the game. And rightfully so, because he's almost like stalking her. You know, obviously he has his own very, very good reason for trying to protect her, but she don't know that, you know. So she's like, do I have to scream? He's like, okay. So, you know, yeah, he does his job very well. He doesn't have a lot of plot going on. He doesn't really have a lot of personality. He has just about enough. I'm debating, I mean, a good person to compare to, again, Silent Hill here is Sybil from Silent Hill 1. He is kind of like the equivalent with Harry as Sybil. Sorry, she is the equivalent with Heather as Silent Hill 1. Sybil is with Harry, if that makes sense. I don't know how that came out. Yeah. And I'd say on par. I would probably say on par. I feel like B tier feels about right. Maybe B, C tier, but I'm thinking B tier for now. is right for Douglas. Again, I love, again, depending if you get the bad ending in Silent Hill 3, he basically like up and tries to, you know, consider shooting Heather as well, which is again, because again he tries to be a good I wouldn't say law enforcing citizen, but he is kind of like, you know, he tries to be the moral good, doesn't he? You know, he tries to do his job very well as a cop, a detective, should we say, detective. And he then obviously, once bad shit's going on in the bad ending, then he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to try and shoot this bitch, type of thing. So it's kind of like, yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. And then we've got Vincent. I just looked at his surname. He's Vincent Smith. I never knew he was a Smythe. Vincent's character, interesting. Very interesting character. Like, I suppose, again, Silent Hill 1 comparisons, he's kind of like the Mr. Kaufman on the D tier there. But I think he's a better character. I want to make that very clear. I think that, again, he is kind of like that mysterious kind of, again, now that I'm thinking about it, the comparisons between Silent Hill 1 and 3, again, and I don't think that's I don't think it's coincidental. I think that is genuinely done on purpose. But yeah, he is. You know, Vincent's character is kind of that mysterious type of moral type of dilemma, type of questioning character that makes you think, okay, well, what is behind his mask? What is he trying to do? What is his purpose? What is his relationship with the protagonist? And I think that's the one thing that has definitely cemented better in Silent Hill 3 than I think Kaufman's character is in Silent Hill 1. Is, again, like the most famous line that comes to mind for me in Silent Hill 3 is like, monsters? Those are monsters to you? And again, it gets that horrible, like, oh my god, has Heather been killing people? You know, in the whole thing. Similar to Silent Hill 2, is James killing people, or is he, is he dealing with monsters, you know, type of thing. That's not really explored as a topic in Silent Hill 2 as much. In Silent Hill 3, it's directly thrown into your face of, oh, Jesus, am I killing people? You know, type of thing, you know. But is he just playing with her? I think the latter is the answer to that question, but, you know, it doesn't matter, maybe to look at both of those. But yeah, very cool, mysterious character. Again, the way he plays in toys. Again, there's a bit of Maria in there in terms of like being puppet on the strings, playing with Heather's character a little bit. He's a good character, not very well explored, despite his manipulation of events. Again, he plays, again, another neutral / antagonist type of thing compared to Claudia, who's coming up now. So no, he don't like Claudia. I'm going to keep him in C tier. I think C tier feels right. I don't think he's quite a B tier character, but he's definitely better than Kaufman. So I feel like C tier, C tier, but C tier is where I'm going to put him for now. So, and then we have got Claudia, the main antagonist of Silent Hill 3, who, again, we talk about comparisons. She is basically the Dahlia Gillespie of Silent Hill 3. Not as good, however, in my opinion. I don't think she is as well written a character. I don't think that she does a lot in the game. She tries to steer, Heather's, character to go to certain places and to kind of follow certain events so she can then, birth the god and all that stuff, and of course she's like the cult leader in place of Dahlia and stuff like that. But I just don't think she does a lot. I don't think she has a lot of personality. She kind of just looks spooky almost, and then of course she eats fetus and all that stuff and becomes like the not so good god, should we say, and all that stuff. But I don't know. You know what? I am going to keep her in C tier. I think C tier feels right. I don't think she's great. I genuinely don't think she is as well written a character. Hence the saying, Silent Hill 2's characters are better written, I think, than Silent Hill 3's characters. And I think that's demonstrated there in that tier list so far. It's good, but a step below in that respect. Like, for me, just taking a moment here to kind of talk about Silent Hill 2 and 3. When you ask me what my favorite Silent Hill game is, I tend to say 2 and 3. I think if I'm being honest, I think Silent Hill 2 is my favorite, but I tend to throw in I love Silent Hill 3 at people, and people just to get almost like oh, why? Because for me, it's almost as good. It's almost as good as Silent Hill 2, and people talk about Silent Hill 2 being one of the best games ever made, and don't talk about Silent Hill 3 in that regard. I'm like, you really, really should be reanalyzing your opinion on Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 is incredible. It is nearly as good as Silent Hill 2, but plays it very differently. The characters, as we can see here, maybe not as well written, but the horror aspect of Silent Hill 3 is up a notch. So we're talking about scariest Silent Hill games. For me, Silent Hill 3, shadow of a doubt, scariest game in the series. One of the scariest games ever made, in my opinion. Scared the bejesus out of me when I first played it. So the horror elements of Silent Hill 3 way stronger than Silent Hill 2. So if you like Silent Hill 2, but was like, oh, I don't think it was quite as scary as I thought it was going to be, then play Silent Hill 3. I'm telling you now. Again, hopeful of the Silent Hill 3 remake, you never know. Although I want them to concentrate on Silent Hill 1 first, because again, that's quite a scary game as well. I feel like in terms of the trilogy, Silent Hill 3, then 1, then 2 is the scariest factor, because Silent Hill 1 is kind of like combining Silent Hill 2 and 3's horror. Like, it's the mood and the tenseness and the atmosphere of Silent Hill 2 is present in Silent Hill 1. And it's got some heckin' scary moments that are nearly as good as Silent Hill 3. Anyway, right. So now let's talk about Silent Hill 4. Now, before we get any further, I would like to make quite clear here that Silent Hill 4, I've not played it in some time. In fact, I might play it on my channel soon. We will see. If you guys want that to happen, then check out some of the polls that will be coming up on my page, on my socials soon, because I might play it after Silent Hill 3. But if you guys want to influence that, then check that out. But yeah, I'm honestly, like, I've not played Silent Hill 4. I've only played through it once fully and 2 or 3 times partially. And I've not beat the game in probably at least 12 years, maybe even 15 at this point. So please forgive me when I say I'm not as familiar with the characters as I would like to pretend to be. But I'm still going to give it a good go, and I certainly have, got some familiarity with the characters. So let's talk about Henry then. So this is where things kind of change, I suppose, is that Henry's character isn't as good as the first trilogy main protagonists. He's not got a lot of personality. Again, you kind of argue that not a lot of the characters do, but again, I just don't feel like a lot of the events that happen with and around Henry really. I feel like he's probably the most distracted and distant of the events from the plot of the game, as the other characters are. So what happens to Harry in Silent Hill 1, a lot of what happens to James in Silent Hill 2, etc. It's really around them and to do with them. Like, basically, Henry was going to be the 22nd sacrament, which is going to be the final, murder, so to speak, and all that stuff. So, and he's got relationships with Eileen and stuff like that, and he's got some distant relationship with his neighbours and in the room, the corridor and the apartment block and stuff like that. But I don't know. Let's be honest. I don't think the plot of Silent Hill 4 is as good as the other 3 plots, but it's still underrated despite that, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to put Henry at C tier here. I feel like that feels right. I don't think he's a bad character at all. I definitely think, however, he's definitely the worst protagonist, I think, of them all. Now, again, Eileen kind of feels kind of similar. She actually probably gets more airtime, I'd say, than a lot of the side protagonists in any of the games, apart from perhaps Maria in Silent Hill 2. But again, there's not even any confirmation really that there's any specific romance between Eileen and Henry, really. So there's I don't know. I just don't think that she's, again, she's involved with the 22 Sacraments. She's involved with some of the events of the plot, but I know that. But again, like yeah, I don't know. I just I almost find that she's just there. They're just two quite plain characters in events that are just quite traumatic. To be honest with you, I can't be honest with you. Now that I'm looking at the Silent Hill 4 character list, I do feel like they're quite meh, because the next character that we're going to talk about. Oh no, sorry. No, not the next character. Well, yeah. The next character we'll talk about is Cynthia. Now, I actually think Cynthia is actually one of the better characters in Silent Hill 4. Again, she's almost like that mix, shall I say, between Eileen, believe it or not, and also with Maria in Silent Hill 2. She's that promiscuous, sexy type of leading Henry on type of character. In fact, I think that's kind of why I like her character so much, is that basically her death comes out of nowhere for me. Her death was the most impactful, because if you don't know what's going on in Silent Hill 4, which you shouldn't if you are playing this spoiler free, her death is the first major death in the game, and it's brutal, and you don't see it coming, and if anything, she's kind of the way her character's set up is I was expecting her to potentially be the side character, to be maybe the love interest, to be basically Eileen's character, but maybe I got the wrong end of the stick, but that's kind of how I perceived it to be on my first playthrough. And then she dies, and it's like, oh jeez, that's terrible type of thing. Yeah, so I don't know if we should put her on the B tier though. Oh, screw it. Shall we? No, looking at the other characters, that means I'm going to bump Vincent up to B tier, just to kind of get more balance in there. She is a C tier character. I don't think she's quite as good, dare we say, as someone like Vincent is. So yeah, let's bump that up there. She's okay overall in the plot of the game. As I said, on first impressions, I was expecting more from her, but then it just fizzles out, because then she becomes a ghost, and obviously then that's basically it. So. But yeah, the next character I was about to talk about, I was saying, the next character falls into that. This is the character I was talking about, Jasper. I have no interest or care or much of an opinion on this guy. His death had no impact on me whatsoever. His personality had no impact on me. I didn't really have any thoughts or feelings about the guy. And, it's sad that he died, I suppose, and it's actually quite traumatic, of course. But I just don't really care. I don't really, and I think that comes down to a lot of the characters, because the same character, I'm just going to go straight into it, I'm always the exact same about, is Andrew's character. I don't really, maybe it's because I don't remember the characters that well. Maybe I need to revisit Silent Hill 4 again soon, which again I will say I might do if you guys vote for that poll. But I don't really have an opinion on these guys. I don't remember them really. And I remember their deaths, I remember their ghosts, but I don't necessarily remember their personalities too well, and I definitely don't think that they had any particular impact on me as such. The next character I am going to put into C tier. However, I do remember, and I do have some opinions and some things to say about, which is Richard Braintree. Richard was a dick. I remember him being an absolute prick to Henry in Silent Hill 4. He was not a nice guy, and he was he had more personality than the previous set of characters that we just talked about, that's for sure. And one thing I will say is his death scene is brutal. It is one of the most horrific death scenes in any Silent Hill game. It's up there with the best death scenes in horror for me. It's fucking awful. Brutal death scene. Really hard on it. I was like, whoa. Like, I don't remember really feeling that much like, about Silent Hill 4 as a whole. But his death got me. It was like, Jesus. Like, it was one of those moments of like I remember like thinking, oh, he's gonna die next, and thinking, oh god, well, good. But even I felt sorry for him. I remember that. I remember going, damn, like that guy had it coming, but damn, type of thing. It was brutal. So, like, yeah, I think Richard is definitely a more fleshed out character than the rest of them. Again, his ghost was quite annoying, yeah, I do feel like he had a bit more going for him than some of the other characters in Silent Hill 4. Another character I don't remember too well is Frank. To be honest with you, I know Frank isn't a victim. I know Frank is another neighbour, and then he has parts and plot to do with the end of the game more than the beginning, but he's kind of just there. I kind of just remember him just being there and not really, hence putting him D tier straight away, just kind of being around and not being like just being kind of supportive as opposed as a neighbour. He's one of the nicer neighbours, if I recall, in Silent Hill 4, but again, not really having a lot going on that made me care for him equally. So I am going to put him in the D tier. But I've got to be honest with you, the main character that we're going to talk about in Silent Hill 4, and I'm not sure I'm going to put this guy straight away, but the main character I definitely have a lot of opinions on is Walter, the main protagonist of Silent Hill 4. So this guy is excellent. So this guy for me is the best character in Silent Hill 4 and is a brilliant villain. A fantastically well-written character, and does the opposite. This is where Silent Hill 4 for me is the opposite of the other Silent Hill 3 games that we've been talking about, is that the other 3 games we've been talking quite a lot about how the game is set around the protagonist. Silent Hill 4 is not like that. Silent Hill 4 is set around the antagonist. It's set all around Walter Sullivan, and his heinous crimes and murdering and all the deaths and all of the sacrifices to the 22 sacraments and everything to do with his plot and his story and his arc and drive and narrative, and he's excellent. He's brutal. Again, you feel a little bit sorry for him in parts, and again, when you talk about him as a young lad and stuff like that, and hearing his backstory, hence saying he's actually a really well-written character. He's a great villain. I'm going to put him straight into A tier. I don't think I'm going to put him in the S. I don't think I can put him in the S. He's between A and S, but I'm going to put him in the A. He is a great character, by far the best character in Silent Hill 4, and as a great antagonist. Some of his murdering is brutal. Some of his, like, again, he's a stalker enemy as well. He runs after you and tries to chase you down and kill you and stuff like that as well. I love that. It's not scary, but it was fun. Again, seeing Silent Hill doing a stalker enemy similar to like Nemesis and Mr. X and Resident Evil was very interesting because they'd never done it before, and seeing them try it with Walter was interesting, and I enjoyed it. It was not as scary. I think that's the problem now, is that by the time this game came around, we'd already kind of gone through those type of experiences, and they didn't do it as well. But it was still a fun experience, and it did make him a bit of a threat. And again, it wasn't like it was. Again, a lot of Silent Hill games are set like, you kind of like almost not trying to say it in a disrespectful way, but almost like a walking simulator in terms of you kind of go from A to B to C and then shit happens to you. Whereas in, Walter's around, he gets around and he's after you, and he's, Silent Hill 4 was a very, very interesting game. I highly recommend you check out Silent Hill 4 if you guys haven't before. Is it as good as the first 3? No. Is it good though? Yes. Is Silent Hill not so good afterwards? Pretty much. Silent Hill 4 is the last good Silent Hill game that I can tell that has been made, apart from maybe I didn't mind Origins, but I wasn't a big fan of much of Silent Hill after that. It's Walter's great, fantastic villain, well written character, a brutal villain, as close to a classic kind of evil-spirited, mean-spirited bastard in a Silent Hill game as you're going to get, really, in terms of, like, there's I feel like he's quite straightforwardly written in that respect, and in a good way. So that's my Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4 tier list. What do you think? Have I got this completely and utterly wrong? What characters have I put too high? What characters have I not put high enough? Have I got this wrong? Let me know, please. Check out my other stuff. I stream three or four times a week. We are playing Silent Hill 3 at the moment over on Twitch and YouTube, but I'll be back next week with another tier list. I wonder what that'll be. We'll find out soon. Much love, take care. Bye-bye.